Disney's Moana has gotten tons of great reviews. It sits at 95% on Rotten Tomatoes and an 81 on Metacritic. It made $643 million at the box office with a budget of $150 million. It even got nominated for Best Animated Feature at the 89th Academy Awards. Safe to say, it's a pretty solid success. Much of Moana's praise comes from its progressiveness in having a strong female lead who doesn't have romance as her primary motivation, and b, the incorporation of Polynesian culture into the film. However, I would argue that despite its accolades and plus points for diversity, the film still contains a lot of the typical issues that come with a Disney film trying to represent other cultures. In Jin Ying's article in the Journal of the European Institute for Communication and Culture, she discusses how Mulan is practically the most American character in the entire film. By this she meant that she was the only character that had obvious American ideals such as individualism and the liberation of the self from external forces. She quotes, "The selfhood endorsed by Disney's Mulan is an expression of the Western notion of individualism." I mean, even the co-director says, "I think she celebrates the importance of an individual." I would argue that the same goes for Moana, because Moana is the American in the film. Like Mulan, she's the only one that's not afraid to venture out and seek opportunities the American way, unlike the backward people of her culture, who are afraid of venturing beyond the island's reef. And although it was good on Disney not to give Moana any sort of romantic storyline, it further reinforces the fact that she's really independent and individualistic, which again speaks to the more Western notion of individualism. She doesn't seem to work well with her parents or the other villagers, and when Maui shows up, she doesn't work well with him either. At one point in the film, Moana's father shows her a tower of tablets placed on the top of a hill, one for every village chief of every generation. He mentions that,
"When you add your stone, you will raise this whole island higher. You are the future of our people, Moana."
At the end of the film, we see that the cycle is broken with a shell on the top instead of a rock, which seems akin to Western colonialism, placing their flag over the land and erasing the past. It's just a very Western portrayal of a culture that isn't Western. Besides that, as much as the film receives praise for being as diverse as it is by incorporating Polynesian culture into it, it still ends up portraying them as people who are backward and afraid of new ideas and the exploration of the unknown. For example, Moana's father constantly reminds her not to venture beyond the reef.
No one goes beyond the reef.
And the only character that supports Moana is her grandmother, but everybody knows her as the crazy village lady.
"I'm the village crazy lady. That's my job."
In this way, Disney others the more traditional Polynesians to the more Western ones, much like how every other Chinese character in Mulan is othered from Mulan. Moana's inaccurate depiction of Polynesian culture goes beyond that. A Tumblr post posted, her clothing had similarities to Tongan dress. Maui looked sort of Cook Island, Rarotongan, and her father had Samoan tattoos, and Moana's name could have come from any Polynesian island. They're blending different Polynesian cultures into one unified Disney version, just like what they did with Mulan, confusing Huns and Mongols and just Chinese altogether. In Caroline Leslie's article in Screen Edition, she discusses the inaccuracies of Maui's character. She quotes, "In illustrated books, comics, and animated films, Maui often resembles a lithe teenager on the verge of manhood. In this movie, Maui has been supersized, partially to make him seem godlike, or even perhaps superhero-like, and partially to give him a body large enough for his tattoos to be easily read. This representation has led to accusations of Disney perpetuating a comic stereotype about obese Polynesian men, instead of depicting this mythic, much-loved Polynesian character in his traditional form." But the issues with Maui don't stop there, as some of the film's merchandising went awry. Alongside the dolls, plush toys, and action figures based off the film, there was one piece of merchandise that struck quite a bit of controversy: Maui's skin costume. It was criticized largely by Pacific Islanders for promoting brown face. Some even went as far as to compare it to blackface makeup, which is the makeup white performers wore during minstrel shows to play black characters. And within a couple of days, Disney pulled the costume off stores worldwide, physical and online. Just like how they try to erase anything offensive they've ever done in the past, as if it never happened. Now, none of this is to say that Moana is a bad film. I personally really enjoyed it. But looking beyond the film as just a piece of entertainment, it is a little bit problematic. However, like with Pocahontas, Disney recruited several cultural experts from the Pacific to advise on the film. But this time, Disney really did listen to their cultural advisors, instead of downright ignoring them the way they did with the production of Pocahontas. The result of them listening to their cultural experts this time was having the story be rewritten 9 times over. Another example is Maui's original design, in which he was bald, so that he could bear more of a likeness to Dwayne Johnson, who voices the character. But the cultural experts weren't very happy with that, and Disney reworked Maui's design to make him have long hair. Ultimately though, as Leslie points out, Moana is still an animated fantasy version of Polynesian life and customs steered by two non-Polynesian men. But Disney hiring Pacific Islanders as their cultural advisors and actually listening to them is a step forward, albeit just a baby step forward. And I guess baby steps are better than crawling? At the end of the day though, Disney will always make films based on how well they think their films will be received by audiences and critics and how well they do at the box office. So they'll take risks, but not very huge ones. At least not ones that would damage what people have come to know and love of the Disney brand. For example, Frozen was being progressive while still adhering to classical Disney tropes. Girl gets the guy. It's different, but it's still a girl getting a guy. So Disney always tries to find the right balance to satisfy all consumers. Those who want more progressive Disney films and those who still love Disney's past works. And if a project doesn't seem to work out for them, they'll just stop making movies like it. Look at Princess and the Frog. It did well with audiences and critics, but not very well at the box office. As a result, Disney has stopped making 2D animated films. Ultimately, it's up to the audience, you and me, to determine what Disney ends up putting up on the big screen. If enough people want something out of Disney, you can bet they'd do it. As Sarah E. Turner writes, to be sure, Disney does not pursue new representational strategies unless it's certain that profits will increase without alienating the bulk of its audience. Thanks for watching.